This is where all the magic happens. This is our parlor where we milk all of our cows. We have 8 individual milking units on this side, and on the opposite side we have 8 more. So we're able to milk 16 cows in here at one time. Usually it takes around 3 to 7 minutes for each cow to get milked, depending on how much they're milking on that specific day. But we can have 16 in here at a time. So to get through our about 120 to 130 that we milk every day usually takes us around 2.5 hours. I don't have any cows in here right now to give you a milking demonstration, which is a little bit lame. But just to kind of give you the overview of the process, the first thing that we'll do when new cows come in here is we will use this soap, this antibacterial soap in here. You can see there's some blue liquid in there. We'll dip that on all 4 teats of the cow's udder. We'll usually let that sit on there for about 20 to 30 seconds. After it's sat on there for that 20 to 30 seconds, we'll take paper towels and we'll just basically wipe that udder or those teats clean. From there, once everything's clean, the last thing we'll do is we'll start the milk flow actually by squeezing a little bit of milk out of each individual teat. The reason we do that is to help stimulate the milk flow, and then we can check for quality of milk too. Once we've done all that, if you look behind me, we'll go ahead and put on the individual milkers. Those cows will give milk, and then from there, when they're all done, that milker is triggered by sensors. So once it senses that the cow's done milking, there's no milk flow anymore in those tubes, it'll automatically come off. And then from there, we dip them with this soap one more time before they leave out into the barn. And we'll leave that soap on there just to kind of act as a defense mechanism from bacteria or potential pathogens out in the barn. Individual cows are gonna milk different amounts of milk. Cows that just calve are usually gonna have peak milk production. So that's when you're gonna find a cow that gives a lot of milk. Some of our cows right now in peak production are giving around 130 to 100 pounds of milk per day. Right now, average amongst all of our cows here, we're averaging about 72 pounds a day. Cows later off in their lactation, so cows that might have been milking the last 8 months or the last year even, who are very close to being dried off to deliver a calf, are not going to produce as much milk. Some of our cows that are close to having a calf, maybe 3 months away, 2.5 months away, might only be milking 50 pounds or might only be milking 40 pounds. So as a cow kind of goes out through her lactation, so when she first calves, she's gonna produce the most amount of milk, and then from there, the longer that she stays in milk, the milk production will just go down gradually until we're ready to dry her off. She becomes a dry cow. We don't milk her every day for those last 2 months leading up before she has a new calf and then starts the cycle all over again. So after the cows are milked in the parlor, the milk travels through a bunch of stainless steel pipes like this. This pipe here is hooked into this bulk tank behind me. This is like a giant cooler refrigerator. It usually keeps the milk somewhere around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and this tank can hold about 18,000 pounds of milk. The milk truck comes and picks up the milk every day and hauls it to the creamery in First District. All right, we have a full tank of milk here today. Like I said, this milk is kept at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see that blue item ahead of us. That's called the agitator drive. That has basically giant beaters on it, very similar to a hand mixer you might find in your kitchen. And that goes on every 30 minutes just to agitate or spin the milk around so the water and the fats and all the minerals don't separate. All right, I am in the exact middle of our barn where our milk cows are housed. I'm in the middle of the feed bunk right now. You can see some cows munching away on some snacks there. We mix and dump a new batch of feed in here every morning and every night. There's not very many cows at the bunk eating right now. Cows spend a lot of their day actually just lounging and laying down. I'll give you a little view here. We have some cows laying down in the stalls there, casually standing up. So yeah, this is kind of what the view looks like from the middle of the barn. As you can see, there's some lovely manure on the floor. We clean the barn out once a day, and that manure is applied as fertilizer to some of our fields here. So this is kind of what it looks like from the inside of the barn here. So where you saw the cows laying, these are actually called stalls. They're free to roam and pick whatever stall they want to stand or lay in. And you can see here that the bedding that we use is just sawdust or wood shavings. We get this from a cabinet making place out of the cities, and they drop off a semi-load usually every month. So we lay down that fresh sawdust bedding about every other day here. So this is what the actual feed looks like that we feed to our milk cows. I would best compare it to a hot dish. So there's a lot of ingredients in here. As you can see here, there's some long strands of grass, alfalfa. You can see there's some corn. One unique thing in here, we actually feed our cows cottonseed. So that's the seed of a cotton plant. We get that shipped up from the south. Other things in here besides corn, cottonseed, alfalfa, and hay, we have some soybean meal, which obviously comes from soybeans. Dried distiller's grain, that's a byproduct that we get from the ethanol plants here in Minnesota. We also do a little bit of silage, which is fermented corn, and we do some other small stuff such as some vitamins and minerals. And sodium bicarbonate, which acts as kind of a buffer in the cow's stomach. But this is what it looks like. Swan over there is just chowing down her afternoon snack. Typically a cow is going to eat anywhere from about around 40 pounds of feed a day. So they put away a lot of food, but in return, they're able to carry out some of their bodily functions that way: metabolism, digestion, main source of energy, and then in return, they use that energy to ultimately produce milk. So in addition to our milking barn, we sort of have this open barn, which we call a pack barn. The reason we call it a pack barn is you can see the corn stock bales that they're laying on just pack up over time, so that's kind of why we call it the pack barn. But the cows in here, they get milked in the parlor just like the cows in the main barn. The difference though in here is that these cows have all calved recently. So some of them calved last week, some of them calved about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So this is kind of a transition pen for them before they go into the main milking barn. The reason we kind of separate them or transition them a little bit, just so we can kind of keep a watchful eye on them and to make sure they transition back into the barn smoothly. A couple other reasons a cow might be down here is if a cow gets sick for some reason, maybe has pneumonia a little bit, or just needs a little extra time before they go back into the milking barn. As you can see here, they got their afternoon nap on pretty solid.